Welcome to this week's IGTV. Your teen won't do their schoolwork and they won't even try. I mean, you're not asking them to get straight A's, but they can at least try their best. Come on. If this sounds familiar to you and you are at your wit's end with how to get your teenager to actually show up in school or participate even a little bit, then this week is for you. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to talk to you straight in this one. I'm not going to mince words. I am also going to ask you to have an open mind. If you are struggling and you've tried everything your way, maybe it's not working. So you may not agree with what I'm about to say today. And I'm going to ask you to have an open mind regardless and give what I'm saying a shot. Because what else do you have to lose? My name is Allie Payne. I am a certified life coach, certified relationship systems coach. I have been working with parents of teens for 15 years now to help them end this painful disconnection, emotional blow-ups, and stressful silences to build relationships based on trust and respect. I was a very troubled teen. I'm going to share more of my story with you today. I came from an emotionally, physically abusive home. I had an eating disorder starting at 12 for 14 years. I went from straight A's to F's and failing out and an attempted suicide, and have spent essentially the rest of my life from the time I was 18 seeking therapy and emotional freedom from trauma, anxiety, all of the effed up messages that I had, along with raising two incredible sons. And I'm bringing that experience to you today to help you, but more importantly, to help you help your teen. All right, let's jump in. So your teen is refusing to do schoolwork. They are not trying. Perhaps they're lying about assignments, whether things are done or not. And it seems pretty simple to you. Just do the work. How hard is that? But they won't. And they're not. And you have probably tried everything you can, but I can tell you why it's not working. This is not a behavioral issue. You don't have a behavioral issue. And focusing on their behavior and trying, I'm just looking at my notes, by the way. Girls always got to have notes because squirrel brain. Trying to change their behavior through punishment, discipline, or consequences is going to make this problem, this current problem, worse. It's going to make it worse. So you can keep trying what you've been trying and keep getting what you've been getting, or actually start to see how you might be part of the issue. Or maybe try some of these things. Yes, procrastination may be how it shows up. Stick with me on that. I got some information for you, okay? So, this is not a behavioral issue. This is an emotional issue. School avoidance is not about behavior. It's about beliefs, emotions. This is not about trying to get your teen to hear your point of view or convince them of what, all of the things in their life that are going to go wrong and the wheels are going to fall off and how they're not going to get the job and how they're not going to be able to graduate. And if they would just listen, they would get it. No, it's not about forcing your point of view or trying to convince your teen of anything. Your job is to do the work to understand your teenager's point of view and meet your teen there so that you lift them and work with them rather than against them. I know, I see you guys, I know. You are likely doing what your parents did to you. And we now know through massive decades of psychological study that increases trauma, anxiety, depression, emotional abandonment, emotional suppression, and a whole other lot of world of hurt that does not help your teenager. So just because this is what your parents did to you, and I'm not saying your parents are bad people, because guess what? No one taught your parents either. They did the best they could, given what they know. But we know differently now. And there are plenty of scientific studies to prove it. These are all studies that are given in how to raise a resilient child, a self-driven child, how to help your teenager. In fact, one of the key success factors in life is resilience, emotional intelligence. I got something in my throat. Not whether or not you got A's in school. All right. I'm going to keep moving here. I got some stuff to go through. Okay. So school refusal is a sign of fear, fear of something, generally fear of failure, however. So fear, it is a sign of anxiety. Now that could be anxiety as a physiological function of the brain. It could be situational anxiety, like a large test or a particular teacher or a peer group in that class or a particular assignment that they don't feel confident about. So anxiety can show up lots of different ways. It can be from school refusal, can come from overwhelm. They just feel past their eyeballs. They're just overwhelmed. And when our brains go into overwhelm, most of our intellectual functioning of our brain goes into shutdown because we start to just pay attention to the basics because we don't have room for anything else. School refusal is also a sign of hopelessness and helplessness. Your teenager just feels hopeless. They have perhaps tried everything they already know, even though you don't realize that. And because it didn't work, the coping strategies they knew didn't work, they now feel hopeless. And hopelessness can be overcome for sure, but it definitely will show up as school refusal around that, okay? Getting your school to be on side with this is part of the work, so we're getting there. Failing will not make her worse, so you need to let that go. Failing will not make it worse, okay? Just stick with me. That is your story that you were raised with. It is not a workable story when your teenager is already drowning. Okay, so stick with me on this. Hi, Louise. Okay, so if you see your teen's school refusal purely as behavioral and defiant, like defiant behavior, you are being fooled by the mask, okay? And you're not seeing the truth behind it. It's literally like trying to chase a plume of smoke and somehow like contain the plume of smoke instead of just go find the fire. Just go find the fire. Why are you running around trying to capture the smoke of like the plume of smoke? Like you can like do anything with the smoke? Just find the fire, for heaven's sakes. Don't waste your time on trying to predict the wind and where it's blowing and blah. Just go to the source. All behavior is driven by emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. So you can run yourself ragged and erode your connection and your relationship with your teen by purely focusing on the behavior and trying to punish, discipline, and consequence. Or you can try some of these methods. Got nothing to lose. All right, here's my own story, because this is a brief bit of my own story relative to this. I was a straight A award-winning athlete and academic student in high school. I came from a home where perfection was the only thing that was allowed. Anything short of perfection was failing, shameful, and weak. I was so driven to perfection, I started taking diet pills at 12 and had an eating disorder for 14 years because anything short of, a size 4 model athletic body was fat and ugly and shameful as well. So I was a high achiever. I actually was an advanced student, but I only was because I had a photographic memory. My dad also has a photographic memory. I have had it tested. I wasn't smart. I just had a photographic memory. So all of a sudden in grade 10 and 11, when academics began to be more challenging because it wasn't about just remembering and regurgitating, it was more about execution and application of knowledge, I had zero study skills. I had zero, none. I did not know how to absorb information, to apply it. I knew how to remember information. There's a big difference. And I couldn't keep the wheels on anymore. And so I went from A's to F's and failed some courses in grade 11 that I had to retake in my grade 12 year. And look, I'm alive. I didn't burst into flames. I actually have a career. I was even employed a few times. Yeah, right? There's no big red letter on my sweater saying I'm a failure because I failed some courses in grade 11. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. When you go to your doctor and that big fancy diploma they have on the wall, does it say finished top of class? Or does it say scraped by, finished bottom of class? What about your lawyer? Do you know if they finished at the top of their class or the bottom? Do you care? Did you ever think to ask? If you are raising your child in an environment where you are convincing them that failure is death, this isn't the game of Survivor. Failing a course in school, failing a year in school will not snuff their torch. The problem with that thinking is that the teenage brain is already highly susceptible to judgment, comparison, and criticism, and internalizing failure because they don't have the intellectual filter to know that the hard stuff in their life does not define their worth in the world. But when you as a parent enforce that message, then but that's your agenda. That is your agenda that they have to finish with their twin, that they need to get through the grade. That's your agenda. Let it go. Teenagers believe that anything shy of perfection as they perceive it, and let's not forget, this generation of teens is bombarded with images and messages of perfection every friggin' day from Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, television, movies. There have been so many studies shown at the level of misogyny and this isn't against men. I'm just saying, like, cultural and messages for men and young ladies constantly falling short of perfection. Their brains internalize that. So when they start to struggle at school, they internalize they are a failure, and then they come home and you reinforce that message with punishment, discipline, and they're not meeting your expectations and standards. You are reinforcing that they are a failure. And then we can't understand why they won't do their schoolwork and they won't go to school. Shocker. Okay, so this is what, in grade 11, when I was failing out, okay, here's what happened for me. I went from being an enthusiastic straight A student who used to help other students with their work to not being able to, it was falling through my fingers, and I had no emotional coping strategies. I had no study strategies to pick that up, and I had no emotional support at home to go home and say, I don't know how to do this. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Help me. There was no emotional support for that whatsoever. So my only option as I saw it as a 17-year-old was to hide it. Hide that I was failing. Because I already got emotionally berated enough at home, and I am not saying that you are an emotionally abusive parent. But I am saying if you see all of their behavior as only defiant behavior and you choose not to get to the source of the emotions and beliefs behind the behavior, that you are contributing to the problem. We can unfriend now if that works for you. Okay? I identified, like as a 17-year-old girl, I identified with being the straight A, smart student, athlete. That's who I knew I was. And when all of a sudden I couldn't be that person anymore, I didn't like me. I didn't know how to be her. It was like I was failing myself, and I didn't know what to hang on to. And I know it sounds simple. You say, just go ask for help. Just, the teacher's right there. Just go ask for help. No, because I wasn't the girl who asked for help. I was the person that the teachers actually used to get me to help mark other kids' stuff. I was the person that kids came to for help. I didn't know how to be the person who went and asked for help. Because again, the messaging I got at home was weak and shameful and embarrassing and stupid. My parents are highly intelligent. My dad skipped 3 grades in school. 3. So not being smart was not okay. So I hid it all. And I instead internalized this constant message of failure. I had no support, no encouragement whatsoever to help me in a very bad mentally health place. By the time I skipped a bunch of school. I don't think I went to a single Monday in grade 11. By the time I was 3 weeks into grade 11, I knew I couldn't hold it together anymore and I was failing. I was going to fail. By spring of grade 11, the wheels truly fell off and I attempted suicide. I hated every part of me. I hated every cell in my body. I hated the words I spoke. There was nothing I liked about me. I was stupid, a failure, embarrassing, unacceptable, fat, pig, ugly. These are all the things that were said to me, but also I believed about myself. And I got grounded because I used to hide my report cards from my parents. This is before the digital era. So I would hide my report cards because all they were looking for was my performance. And if I didn't perform, I got grounded. There was no help. There was no encouragement. There was none of that. There was none of that. So your teenager needs them to be they need you to be their ally, not their judge and jury. Because what you don't understand is that teenagers, I needed encouragement. I needed somebody. I was the leader in my high school, 1,500 kids. I was the president of the student council. I ran assemblies. I was the MC. And all of a sudden in grade 11, I just disappeared. Athletics was my life. It was the one place I was confident. I stopped showing up to practices. I started mouthing off. I spent more time in the principal's office in grade 11 than I spent in my classes. And not one single adult, not one, said to me, Allie, are you okay? Tell me what it's like to be you right now. What do you need? Not one adult. And I was known to all of the administration because I was the leader in the high school. Not one person. Everyone said, "What's wrong with you?" Nobody said, "What happened to you?" Nobody. So, that's a bit of my story. On my own, thank you, Louise. Every teenager deserves more. And this is why this is so heartbreaking for me. Because I walked those shoes. I lived that story. And I can only get so many DMs in a day from teenagers who are walking that same path, feeling completely shamed, shunned by their parents. No safe, loving place for them to land before I start to lose my ever-loving shit. So I know I'm passionate about this. I'm not talking to you because I read a book. I'm talking to you because I walked it. And I'm trying to get this across in a way that is meaningful and lands. Okay. I want you to look at your expectations. I want you to look at your expectations of what it means for you, for your teenager, to try their best and put in the effort. What is your judgment and your story about that? Oh yeah, you don't discipline about grades and you don't have boundaries around grades, but I'll tell you what, they're going to try their best. What does that mean to you? And how does that define you as a parent? Not your child. How much of this is about you? Because I am well aware that parent shaming is currently an Olympic sport. I get that. I got shamed for my own son because my son has generalized anxiety, and there was 9 years of his academic career that were literal hell. And I was told that it was because my husband is a 3-time Olympian and silver medalist, and I'm a type A person, and we were driving him too hard. I was told that I was the problem. So I'm aware that parent shaming is a big deal, and it's a fine line between taking responsibility in your role in a relationship, any relationship, and being with some really hard truths about insights you might have. And I'm not here to shame or blame you about that. I am literally here to cry and scream on behalf of your teenager. Sorry, I got hair in my mouth. On behalf of your teenager, to get you to hear them. Hear this, maybe hear me, okay? So I want you to look at your expectations of what it means for your teenager to try their best. What is your best when you're having a very difficult mental health season? What is your best? Because if your best in your worst mental health day is waking up, maybe getting dressed, and maybe even like just sitting on your front porch and getting some sunshine that day. Why would I yell and scream at you for doing self-care and taking care of yourself when instead of saying, oh my gosh, you are getting out of bed is too much on the worst day. Thank you, Louise. So why are we shaming our kids when they are struggling, which by the way, this is an epidemic, okay? The American Association of Pediatric Psychologists and Psychiatrists declared a state of emergency for all youth back in November because of the impact that you and we can talk about, what we cannot actually realize, the impact of this pandemic on teenagers, their social interactions, their self-esteem, which already drops up to 30% in the adolescent years. So yay. And the removal of their social networks, their sports, the life as they knew it. There was no preparation for that. And now we're just like crapping on them because they can't get their poop together? Not helping. All right, I want you to look at your teen is already judging themselves. They have already failed their own expectations. So when you add your judgment and expectations to that, you literally are like chiseling in stone across their chest. Failure. They have internalized all of it. School avoidance comes from believing they are a failure. So, I know, Louise, and I think it's terrible when you live in a place where mental health days for your teenager are not allowed. and that is considered legal truancy. And I understand the intention of that law. I think that law is a wide sweeping brush that is not helpful in all cases. So we got to work with what we have. So here's the other thing about not trying. You and I, okay, any human being will only perform to a level that matches our internal value of ourself. Think about that for a second. You will only ever perform to a level that matches your internal value of yourself. So if your teen believes they are a failure, they're going to perform to that level because your internal belief of yourself must match your external environment. So if your teen isn't trying and they're avoiding school and they already believe they are a failure. And they are simply proving themselves right. That's what I did. I remember that actual conscious thought. I believed I was such a failure that I needed my grades to match. I needed my report card to have every single thing say F, 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 F to prove so that I could say to people who were judging, shaming, and blaming me, see, I am a failure. So you need to let go of your expectations because I am a failure. See? I was just trying to prove myself right. Because the only way I could think of to get everybody else's expectations off my back was to prove them wrong. To prove I wasn't capable. To prove I didn't have what it takes. So I got Fs. Because I proved myself right. And then I could get them to let go. All right. Effort also comes from two things. Okay, effort, motivation, desire, those three things together require two things. Number one, they require confidence. Not that I'm going to be successful, but they require sufficient confidence that I believe there is a probability of success. Okay, so I will not put in any effort, be motivated, and if I haven't already said it in here, which I don't think I have, you cannot motivate your child. So can we just let that go now? Can we just stop that? Literally the number one question I get from parents all the time. How do I motivate my teen? You can't. Motivation is an inside job. When you try and do it externally, that is nagging and shaming. There's the truth. Okay, so move off of it. Effort, motivation, and desire require a level of confidence. I'm going to get to that, how you help them build confidence. I'm getting there. Confidence. But here's the second thing, the part of this, because you think you can just build your teenager's confidence and we'll just get there, right? Oh no, there is a part two that requires more of this than what you might have been first believing. Part two that is required for any effort, motivation, or desire. Risk of failure. So number one is confidence. I have to believe there's probability that I'm going to succeed. But I also have to understand, number two, what is the risk of me failing? What is the assessment of risk if I fail? Well, if the assessment of risk is that my parents are going to continue to consequence, discipline, punish, shame me because I'm not meeting their expectation, I'm not going to try. Why would I try? Why would I try if trying is going to reinforce being a failure? I know many parents say to me, they're like, well, if you just try, I wouldn't get upset. But this isn't about trying to convince your teen. This is about doing the work to understand their point of view. Their point of view is, why would I do something that I already feel like a failure at so that I try and fail, which erodes any remaining self-esteem or confidence even more. So not trying and failing is the only shield of emotional protection I have left, because then at least I can say, well, of course I failed. I didn't try. So that's the only way I can avoid myself internalizing that I am a failure, because if I tried and failed, it reinforces it. So when I don't try, it's safer. That's it. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna get to your questions here in 1 sec, okay? Here's a story. I've got 2 more stories I want to tell you, because I'm not that I'm trying to avoid the answer, but I want you to understand this problem, okay? Because until you fully understand the problem, you can't be part of the solution, period. I know you want a quick fix. I know you want the pill. There's no such thing. So fully understanding the problem is truly the only way to be part of the solution. I've worked with the particular parent in my, she took a couple of my parenting programs, and she's in my private parenting community, and man, this woman is courageous. Courageous. Oh, she's like me. She's a type A. Come on, you got to get the very hard worker, was raised by parents where, you do what you're told and you do it well, and you have to succeed or you are like an embarrassment. Similar to me. And so she was doing what she knew. She was kind of military with her kids, and you have got to get up. You've got to do your best. You have to work hard. It's the only way. Now, here's what ended up happening. Major depressive disorder runs in the genetics of her children's family. Okay. So what ended up happening is her kids at the time, 15 and 11, started like both kind of falling off the rails. Her 15-year-old first, which makes sense because the massive hormonal changes in the brain can amplify any mental health issues, or can temporarily create some mental health issues that then are released over time. But it definitely makes it harder. Her 15-year-old started to fall off the rails. She quickly realized the way that she was parenting prior was not working. Like her daughter was going down, down, down. So it was really, really bad. It got really bad. Her children have since been both clinically diagnosed with major depressive disorder. They are both in therapy and they are both on medication. However, if you think it happened like that, oh, you're kidding yourself. This has now been 5 or 6 months of her process that have been excruciating, and she has been doing an amazing job. Her 15-year-old didn't go to school for 6 months. 6 months of school refusal, of freakouts, anxiety attacks, the depression, the crying, the huge emotional outbursts. She had to let go of how she was parenting, and she had to start to stop looking at behavior and external performance as the only way of being a good parent, let alone having a good child, whatever those mean, and get in and find her daughter in her cloud. Be willing to like walk in through the smoke and find her daughter in it, because she was in a bad place. Through this process, 5 to 6 months, she has helped her daughter to listen to her body, to honor what is true for her. They have found the best medications for her daughter. She has now understood that her daughter needs to take her medication 1 hour before she wakes up. So her daughter is turning 16 now. Her alarm goes off an hour before she needs to wake up. She takes her medication, goes back to sleep for an hour, so that when she gets up, the medication is in her system. She does better. She has helped her daughter, not by telling her, but by encouraging and supporting her to find strategies that work for her, and believing her daughter, believing her in what worked and what didn't, to what her daughter's morning routine is. She needs time. She can't be rushed. Her daughter uses video games to calm herself. So on days where she has tests or exams, sometimes she gets up a bit early and she'll play video games for 15 or 20 minutes because it actually helps her feel calmer. It helps her calm her nerves. Her mother, instead of berating her for that, has believed her and advocates for her. Fine, you need that 15 or 20 minutes? You do what you need because I believe you. Because I trust that you know yourself. I don't know you better than you, and I never will. You know you better. She has encouraged her to develop good sleep routines. She has constantly been asking her daughter, how do you feel when you do that? What might help you feel better? What do you need from me right now? She has over and over and over and over said, what do you need from me? And sometimes her daughter will say, I don't know. This has been the process. And now over this time, her daughter usually has something to say. And this gorgeous, caring, courageous mama will say, okay, I believe you. Let's do that. And so her daughter has learned to, number one, build emotional intelligence, an emotional vocabulary, and most importantly, emotionally advocate for herself. And as she advocates for herself, this mama believes her and gets behind her. And guess what has happened? Guess what has happened 7 months later? Six months later. This nearly 16-year-old girl who has major depressive disorder now gets up every day and goes to school. And did she fail some stuff? Yeah, of course. Is she going to pick it up? Yeah, sure. But she is in major depressive disorder at 16, which that is like an avalanche of stuff. She is more confident in herself, more powerful in her self-advocacy than she ever has been, because this mama was courageous enough to let go of how she needed it to be, to let go of the fact her daughter might fail some stuff, to let go of the fact she did not walk this path herself and didn't know how to do it, to come to terms with the fact she will never know what her teen needs more than what her teen does. And she got on board with that. And it has been hard. It has been horrifically hard. And now she's going through a similar thing with her son, who's turning 12, because he's hitting that hormonal stage. He goes to therapy. He's on medication, but he is still in that stage where he does not go to school as much because he is still really struggling, and he's still currently developing his own strategies, which now she's walked it with one child, is now doing it again. Like, I don't know how to express how much respect and admiration I have for this mama. I'm glad you're finding this helpful, and I'm grateful you're here and you're still listening. I want to tell you one more story. Failure needs to be safe. Failure needs to be safe. So I worked with another mama whose son was struggling in math to the point he was just not doing his math work. But he was going to sports and he did great there, and all he wanted to do was hang out with friends. And so the first reaction as a parent is to remove, well, you can't have all that fun stuff unless you're going to do the work. That's bullshit. Yeah, I said that. If your teenager is struggling, what they need most is things that lift them, things that buoy them. When you remove the things that actually feed their confidence, that's part of the problem. Your teenager needs things that build their self-esteem as they struggle in other areas. So she said to her son, you need a math tutor. You've got to at least pass math or you won't be able to play on the team. And I want you to be able to play on the team. So you've got to pass math. You've got to do this. He still wasn't doing it. She said, I'll get you a tutor. Come on. We have to do this. I want you to be able to play, but you've got to pass math. Nope. He still wouldn't do it. You know why? Because failure wasn't safe yet. So what I said to her was this. I said, you need to sit down with your son. So she told me, she's like, I hated math too. I actually failed some math courses. I said, oh, interesting. Have you told your son that? She's like, no, I haven't. I said, well, you need to. So she sat down with her son and she said, I hated math too. I hated it. And I failed some math courses. And so I understand that you don't like it either. Like, I get it. So do you see in that moment, she was empathizing with her son. Doesn't mean agreeing. Never has. Go look up the definition. She was empathizing with her son by being willing to take his perspective, and more in even another level, she was relating to him at his level by saying, I also failed math and I hated it. So I'm not going to tell you that math is fun. I'm not going to tell you that math is amazing, because it's not. I still hate math. And they were able to have a little bit of a laugh, bring some levity. Then she said to her son, I will help you choose a tutor. So instead of being told he had to get a tutor, she empowered him to be part of the solution and choose. So she found 3 tutors based on his learning style and that they could afford, that were close and could meet at the time. So she found 3, and then she gave him the 3 names. And she said, I trust you and I believe you to choose what works for you. And he interviewed the 3, and he chose the tutor that worked for him. And he loves this tutor. He still hates math, but he loves this tutor. He's like, they totally get me, and they make it so that I understand it, because she empowered him. But she didn't pretend that school was fun. She didn't pretend that it was awesome. She didn't pretend she was a scholar. She got real with him. Your teenager needs to hear from you. Our generation is doing a terrible job at helping kids see the relevance in school. Our generation is doing a terrible job at making school relevant to what is available in their careers right now. And then we're wondering why kids don't want to go because they think it's useless. Trying to convince your teenager otherwise, save your breath. Instead, take your energy to say, I know. You guys are funny. Pocket Alley. Okay, I'll make an app. What would Allie say? So for you to say to your teen, well, you have to do it. It's so important. And keep enforcing this ridiculous message that your teenager only has value when they finish with great grades and they go to the best schools and they get the best job and that's how they earn your love. Please just stop it. Just stop it. Okay? There are kids who are now earning more than you have ever earned in your life on YouTube. Try telling your kid that that's not possible. Like, we have to get realistic here. Our school system, so more importantly, help your teenager anchor in what's important to them, a passion for them, and then connect the basics of what they need in school for them to pursue that. So you don't make it an extra point of shame where you go, well, if you want to do that, hey, Cheryl, if you want to do that, then you're going to have to get better at school. That's bullshit. That's so dumb. You say to them, okay, if you want to be a chef, okay, I've looked it up, or let's look it up together. You only need to get basics in English. We just have to get you through vocational math, but you're going to need to have this, this, and this. Get behind them. And if they don't have a clue, that's okay. It's okay. C's get degrees. C's get degrees. Then you let them know it's okay to hate school. It's okay if you don't think it's relevant. I get it. And I will tell you one more story. There was a teenager of a friend of mine who was not doing well at school. And this had become an epic battle for her and her teenager at 16. He refused to go. He hated it. He saw no relevance in it. He absolutely couldn't stand it. So she finally said to them, her teen, okay, I love you no matter what. I love you too much to keep arguing with you about this. I don't want this to define our relationship. So if you want to quit, you can quit. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know I will always love you, and it might be hard sometimes, and I'll support you. And he quit, and he got a job, and he's been working full time. And you know what else? He's taking some part-time courses at a college. And you know what he came home and told her? I think I actually am good at learning. I think when I learn the things that I like or feel important, I'm pretty good at it. And now he's making a plan to get his GED part-time while still working and finding so much more confidence in himself. The school system is not built for all types. And it is antiquated, and we need to let that go. The school system is not worth it. Is your child's mental health? Which matters more to you? Your child's mental health or their GED? The GED, their graduation, that diploma, it will be there when they're 60, when they're 80. But their mental health? I'm grateful that I was unsuccessful in my attempt to unalive myself, because my mental health was far more important than my grades or anything anybody was telling me. But I had no support, so I had to decide that myself, and I had to do what was right for me and take care of me. Your teenager's mental health won't wait. Your teenager's mental health is the only thing that will carry them through to ever getting a GED should they decide to. So you prioritize it. You make it a priority. Not your story, your image, your ego, or what you believe is a good child. All right, I got one last thing. How to help your teen. I know this took me a while to get to. Encourage them. Period. Just let them know you believe in them. I know this. Empathize, validate, all the things I've just talked about in my 10-day listening challenge, okay? Validate them, empathize with them. I know this is hard. I know you're struggling, and that's okay. I really struggled in some school too. Or did I tell you about the time I got fired from a job? Okay? You've got to make failure okay and talk to them. It's okay to not love it. A school is antiquated. I know that you don't see its relevance in your life, and I'm sorry that I've been a generation who's been part of forwarding the school system that isn't workable. I'm sorry, I get it. What is it like to be you? Talk less, ask more questions. Do my 10-day listening challenge if you already haven't done it. Encourage your teen, let them know that you believe in them, that your love is not conditional to their external performance markers. Advocate for them. Let them know that you are behind them, that you believe them, and you will do whatever it takes to help them believe in themselves, regardless if they're getting D's or not. If they believe in themselves, hell yeah, fill your boots. Believe them, okay? Find out your teenager's love language. What I want to let you know is I have 2 key videos that you need to watch if this has been meaningful to you. I'm not going to repeat everything in them. The first is the top 10 ways to build your teen's self-confidence and self-esteem. It's my #1 rated blog. If you want it, send me a DM. I'll give you the link. The second is 12 tips for back to school success. It has literally 12 different strategies that help you and your teen to prioritize their time, prioritize mental health, how to advocate and be your teen's ally, not their judge and jury, how to talk to the school and teachers to make it work for them, how to help them find their passion, all of that, it's already in there. Those 2 articles, okay? Time management. I just did a whole YouTube video, and it's here on my Instagram as well, on helping your teenager deal with procrastination and what is behind procrastination, which is actually fear. Generally, it's either based on fear, they don't believe the outcome has any meaning. So those 2 things together is procrastination. It's got all the procrastination buster tips in there. You've got to mix in fun. Stop taking away everything your teenager finds fun and builds confidence in to make them do what you want them to do. Because if your teenager doesn't have a place in their life where they can be fun, free of expectations, and build confidence, that's a big problem. You've got a way bigger problem on your hands, okay? Because you're human and we're all worthy humans. That's right. We don't need to earn love. Can we just trash that message? I also want you to think outside the box. I want you to think outside the box on what you can do for your teen, because your teen is growing up in a very different era than you did. And it is not the same. So stop believing it's the same. Stop forcing the same messages that your parents put on you. And I don't care if you think they worked or they didn't, whatever. You start prioritizing your teenager's mental health, you will start seeing them in a whole different light as a gorgeous, talented, unique, beautiful creation that you have the privilege of being their parent. To build empathy. And the number one, there's 4 parts to empathy, but the first one is perspective taking. And number that will fall off the rails every time when you discipline your child because of the behavior that you're seeing and you're chasing the smoke plume. That's not empathy, because at no point have you even tried to take their perspective. And then listening. Do my 10-day listening challenge. There's tons of tips and tools in there. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being courageous to try new things, even if you think I'm completely out to lunch and it's never going to work. I'm okay with that too. Please hit the follow button. If you're on Instagram, hit subscribe on YouTube and share this. Share this with as many parents as you possibly can, because our teenagers are in an epidemic right now. And unless we as parents are willing to start changing what we're doing and saying, that is not going to change for our teenagers, and they have never needed us more than they need us now. Thank you so much for being here. I will post this immediately on my profile. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Be well.